Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the BISP Podcast. Last time we were joined with Arman, a student athlete, and he talked us through the process and applications to universities in the US with a sport. But today we're joined by Jacqui Brelsford, a counsellor and subject selection helper in BISP. Good morning, Jacqui. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. So yes, I'm Jacqui Brelsford. I'm one of the counsellors at school. My role used to be solely university counselling, and now I do some social emotional counselling at the same time. But yes, one of my roles is, what did you call me? A subject selection helper. I like that. I could make that into a t-shirt or something. That's great.
Yeah. So we have two main exam courses in this school. One is IGCSE at the year 10 and 11 level, and one is the IB diploma at the year 12 and 13 level. And you give a lot of counselling on how to decide how students select their subject choices. Could you just give us a brief overview of what the IGCSE course consists of?
Yes, so as you said, IGCSE is a program that is taken, a curriculum out of the UK that is taken in years 10 and 11. In some subjects, it starts in year 9. And students choose their subjects in year 9. They can take up to 11 IGCSE exams or subjects at our school. You have to do English, you have to do maths, you have to do a form of science. You can either take the 3 sciences separately, or you can do coordinated science. The 3 sciences, biochemistry and physics, you would get a grade in each of those. Or the coordinated science, you would get 2 grades in science. Then you get to choose with a few other subjects. So you can take global perspectives or an extra study session. Global perspectives is a really cool class that kind of discusses all the big issues going on in the world, like war or the environment or gender equality. And then there are a few more traditional classes that you can choose between: history, geography, business, design, technology, art, music, and theatre. And so you have 2 class blocks that you can choose between. So after you've chosen your English, your maths, your science, then you get to choose 2, and then you get to choose whether you do global perspectives or not.
Okay, and that finishes with the final IGCSE exams in May, right? After 2 years.
Yeah, in May of your year 11, you complete them. It's a pretty long few weeks of exams.
Yes,
and
I can relate to that.
Yeah, you've just been through them. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think I also forgot to say that you take a foreign language too. So
yes.
You take Spanish or French or Thai or Mandarin.
Yeah. The IGCSE is a great overall course. You know, it gives you a lot of skill set in many different subjects, and it's not quite to the extreme level though that you have to forget about all your extracurriculars or sports. You know, there's plenty of time to do both. And I actually think it can give you a nice break from the classroom and, you know, take your mind away from that, which can actually help you focus and, you know, gain more success in your subjects. So
your extracurriculars can do that. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Or extra sporting curriculars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to have a balance of both.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And once students in the IGCSE have taken their final exams and they choose to stay on at BISP, then we offer the IB course. Could you just run us through that briefly?
Yeah, so the IB, the International Baccalaureate, is a globally recognized, lots of schools around the world do the IB. It's very rigorous. It's very highly considered. Yeah. You can do the IB diploma or IB courses. And the IB diploma, which is what the majority of our students do, you have to take 6 subjects. And then you have to do TOK, which is theory of knowledge, which your dad teaches, so you know all about. The EE, which is the extended essay, which is a 4,000 word research paper on a subject of your choice. And then in order to pass the diploma and to also graduate from BISP, it's a requirement for both. You have to do CAS, which is creativity, action, and service. And so actually when you were talking about taking activities at IGCSE, it's actually a really good time to start some of those activities that you can then continue into the IB for your CAS. And so the subjects that you take, there are 6 groups: English, maths, a language, sciences, humanities, and then the arts.
Yeah.
And you must take a subject from each of those groups, except group 6 in the arts. If you don't take an art, you can take another subject from the humanities or the sciences, but you have to take 6 subjects. If you do the IB courses, you have to take up to 5 subjects, because you have to be enrolled in 5 subjects to be a student at BISP. And you can take them any combination of those 5. But again, in order to meet the graduation requirements, you will have to have English and maths in that. But your other 3 could probably be something else. And then within all of that, whether you're doing courses or the diploma, you can choose to do it at higher level or standard level. So higher level goes into 3 subjects in more detail. You have an extra hour a week of that subject. And then you have 3 at standard level. And so when you're meeting with us to choose your subjects, you'll choose your 6 subjects, and then you'll choose which you'll do at higher level and which you'll do at standard level.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, a lot of previous friends of mine who I was with in the IGCSE course, they left for other schools because, they just said that IB was too much. There was 2 extra things and they just wanted to narrow down. What would your advice be to somebody who is maybe an all-rounder or wanting to focus in? Is it worth doing the IB if we know exactly what we want to do after school?
That's a really good question, and you're right. It is something that a lot of students and families discuss. As with any curriculum, whether you're doing IB or A-level or the French baccalaureate or the German abreuvoir, it's really about what's right for that student. So if you have a choice, which many of our students and families do, yes, you need to consider what is right for you. And so if 100% you just want to be, a doctor, for example, and you want to study in England, then maybe taking, 3 or 4 A-levels just in the sciences is the right choice for you. The IB is rigorous. It is a lot. And Mr. Meredith always jokes that the IB stands for I'm busy, because throughout year 12 and 13, you're busy, right? And it's tough. And there will come a moment in year 13 when, for every student, I've never seen a student really swim through it calmly. It feels a lot. But students make it through, and the skills that they learn from juggling that, their resilience, their time management, organization, being able to ask for help, being able to stick to deadlines, like those are such crucial skills that, over and above all of the knowledge that you're gaining from the IB, I think the IB really teaches you those other skills. And a lot of the time, in fact, I would say the majority of the time, our IB students who go off to university are so prepared that actually their first year of university is not usually easy, but they feel more prepared from it. Usually, sometimes, I don't want to do mass generalization, but a lot of the time feel, very prepared for their first year. They know how to write an essay, and they know how to juggle all of the different demands that the university will bring. Yeah.
And in my experience in my first year of IB, I find that it really teaches you discipline, because, it's 2 years of, intense workload. They're just firing at you, loads of deadlines, which, you're not going to be able to rely solely on motivation. So when it's not there anymore, then you have to rely on discipline, which is really, I think, what gets you through and makes you so prepared for university and getting a job. It's a lesson for life, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Most jobs will have deadlines. There are certain things that I have to do in my job here at a certain date. And so you're learning those skills. And when you're in the thick of it, in the thick of the IB, it feels all consuming.
Yes.
But by the time you get to May and your exams are over, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And so, and I'm sure I'll be having this conversation with you and your classmates in a few months. And, you just got to stick it out. But usually students reflect and they go, oh, okay, it's only like a month or 2 that are really crazy.
Right.
And then after that, the skills that you've learned, I think, outweigh sort of that stress of that time.
Right, yeah. Moving on, when we're in the process of going into the IGCSE course or the IB course, how do we even begin to consider the subjects we'd like to take?
Yeah, so this is something we've actually put quite a lot of emphasis on at BISP. With the year 9s was where we start for IGCSE. So part of my new role this year is to work more with the year 9s and also with the year 11s in the lead up to the meetings that they have with the counselors in order to choose their subjects. So with the year 9s, there was a period of time last term where I met with them all every Monday. And I introduced them to Unifrog, which is our amazing university platform where there's lots of information there about researching careers and subjects. So I introduced them to that, and then they can they do an interest profiler, they can do a personality test, and that sort of gives suggestions about what they might want to do. So they had a great time looking at, how much money does a landscape gardener, make, or, a performance artist might not make that much money, or a dentist makes more money in America than it does in England. They look at all of that kind of stuff. And it's, a lot of them tend to go straight to the money, but it's also there about, if you take art, DT and maths, what subjects at university might be good for those classes, and then what careers might be an option. And in year 9, you're not supposed to know exactly what you want to do with your future, but Unifrog's a fun way to play around and sort of maybe be introduced to things you hadn't thought of before. So we do a little bit of that. The year 12s speak to them. Year 12s? I think so. Or the year 11s. The older students talk to the year 9s about their experience taking the IGCSE subjects. And that's a really cool experience in students, help showing students or explaining to students in their own language and in their own way what each of the subjects entails. Then the parents are informed too, and so it's encouraged that families have conversations about it together. And then that sort of all culminates in a conversation with one of the university counselors about your subjects. And so you have to take English, you have to take maths, you have to take a language, and all of those 3 you're probably already on that path in year 9. And then you choose in your sciences. So depending at what you want to do, if you really enjoy the sciences, or if you want to go into something in the science area, or if you want to take the most rigorous package, then you might do all 3 of the sciences as separate subjects, or coordinated science might be a better option for you. So that's something we can discuss. And then you get to choose. So you can choose, business, DT, history, or geography in one block, and then art, drama, music, computer science, and business in another block, and PE in another block. And so think about the subjects that you like. Think about what you potentially want to do in the future. And again, you're not expected to know it all, but you might have an inkling one way or the other. Talk to your teachers. Your teachers are the most important people because they know what you're like as a student in that subject. They also know if it's a subject you haven't taken before. For example, business is new in year 10. Then go and talk to a business teacher. Ask them what it's like. And so that's sort of the way to start with the year 9s. We do a lot of lead up. We get them introduced to all of these potential university subjects, career choices. The older students talk to them about it. Then we encourage them to have conversations with their family and their teachers, and then they end up in a conversation with the university counselors where they make that choice.
Right.
So that's for IGCSE.
Yes.
And then for IB, it's a similar process. So we've been meeting with the year 11s. In fact, just now in tutor time, I was with one of the tutor groups, just reminding them about their subject choices and telling them that from next week, we'll be meeting with them. And it's a similar kind of thing. We would encourage them to think about what they like, think about their potential university interests. By the time you get to IB, it becomes a little bit more important about what you actually take, because the IB subjects can be required for university subjects. So if you know, for example, you want to be a doctor, then you really need to take biology and chemistry. There's not really any negotiation around that. If you want to do engineering or computer science, most likely you need to take higher level maths. And so those are the sort of things you would need to think about a little bit more seriously at IB than you had at IG. Then again, talk to your teachers, talk to the ones, talk to the teachers you already have, and then talk to the teachers of the subjects that are new. So at IB, you can take economics and psychology, and environmental systems and society for the first time.
Yep.
The IB is considered a 2-year program. So in theory, you could start any new subject in IB. And so, once you've sort of gathered all your information, again, you'll have a longer meeting now with the university counsellor. The year 9 meetings are only about 20 minutes, but the year 11 meetings are about 45 minutes, and the parents come along because it starts to get a little bit more serious when you're choosing your IBs, like I said, because of the potential effects on your university choice or whatever it is you want to do after school.
Yeah, right. So when we go through this subject selection process, and we've got in mind what we like and what we're interested in, and what we could maybe see ourselves continuing in the future. And I think in my position, I was really privileged to go with what I wanted to do and what interested me. But I knew that in some of my peers' cases, that they were really influenced by their family's, let's say, view of what they think that they should do. And there was one particular subject where hardly anybody signed up, and I went and asked my friends who were great students in this subject, and I said, why didn't you sign up? And they said, my parents won't let me, and that is sometimes a factor at home. So what can we do if we're in that tricky situation?
And that is a tricky situation. It's probably one of it's probably one of the hardest things that I find for myself, is trying to navigate all of that. And so I know for teenagers, it's absolutely difficult. It's really hard to go against, what your parents want, or even against what your friends are doing. It's really, it is tricky. I would say to any parent out there, if you have an expectation for your child, but your child's heart is not in it, whether they do what you want them to do now, if their heart is not genuinely in it, further down the line, whether it be in a couple of years or 5 years or 10 years, they're not going to enjoy it, and they're not going to be happy in it. People, a lot of the time it comes from, there's lots of reasons why parents may, have expectations. But people succeed in the things that they want to do. So there are always, mitigating circumstances, and I can never say sweepingly that, parents have to do this and students have to do that. But I think having really open and honest conversations, and parents, trusting in their children to know what is good for them, to a certain extent. I'm sure, there are times when we all want to take, maybe an easy route, or a subject that you're taking just because your friends are taking it. But if you're taking subjects that you enjoy, those are going to be the subjects that you flourish in, and that you do well in overall. So open and honest conversations between families are important. But at the end of the day, that doesn't always happen. And so I think right now it's really hard to mess it up completely now. So if you do end up taking a subject based on someone else's opinion, go with it, do the best that you can, and you just never know what else you might learn from that subject, whether it's the content, whether it's some little bit of research that you had to read for an assignment in that subject, but it takes you down a path to something else,
Yeah, well said. Yeah. And just going back to the kind of time frame of all of this, when do these subject selections occur in year 9 and 11?
Mm-hmm. So the year 9s are having their conversations right now.
Okay.
And so those should probably be finished in a couple of weeks. And then the year 11s will start from next week.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Pretty soon then.
Yeah. So it happens quite early.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that there's no room to change. Yeah. Mr. Perkins and Mr. Pearson, the IG and IB coordinators, give students a couple of weeks at the beginning of year 10 and year 12 to move around if it doesn't feel right once they actually start the subject. So I get a lot of worried students saying, oh, if I choose it now, I'm stuck in it forever. And it's not the case. There is a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah. I can testify that you can change. Luckily, I think I chose the ones that were right for me, the subjects that were right for me, and I didn't end up changing, but I had many friends who did, and they just went and saw the head teacher and said, this isn't working for me, and they said, okay, we can, make room and change you around, and they settled comfortably and finished that subject. So it's very possible. Yeah. It's never too late to change, everybody.
It's never too late to change.
And
you've just got me thinking, actually, you were saying about some of your friends not being allowed to take certain subjects. And I think we were also saying, off camera, that just because you're not studying it in school doesn't mean you can't study it.
Right,
so a lot of the times there are certain subjects that families, they don't think your students can make any money in it, and they don't think there are any prospects and things like that. I would say that you learn invaluable skills regardless of the content of the subject.
Yeah, of course.
And so that's really, no matter what you take, I think there are things to learn and they have benefits. But at the same time, if it's something that you can do outside of the IB curriculum in your spare time or for fun, that's amazing. There's no one stopping you from doing that.
Yeah. And to conclude, what words of encouragement do you have to the students who are just feeling daunted by this experience?
Yeah, and I think it can feel daunting because, especially in year 9, this is the first time you have been given kind of any choice in your education.
Yeah, definitely.
And so this is the first time you're being asked, like, what subjects do you actually want to take? And it feels like a really big question. And in some ways it is important. But I would say just enjoy that. Enjoy having agency over your learning and over the next 2 years of your schooling. Be mature about it. Get as much information as you can from different friends and family and teachers. And then, and just enjoy the process. And also, have comfort in the fact that you can't really mess it up too much.
Yeah.
And even in the very rare cases that I know of where, potentially someone hasn't met an English criteria or hasn't taken higher level maths that they needed for a university or something, there's almost always a workaround. You can take, a summer course, you can do an external exam. And so when you're making your decisions, you're doing it based on the information at hand at that time, and you're doing the best that you can. And as long as that's sort of the way that you're going, you can't mess it up too much. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. And eventually, it will be okay. Even if it doesn't feel okay in that second, it will be okay.
Just trust your instincts and always rely on the fact that there are so many branches to every tree, so many roads to every highway, I guess.
Yeah, beautifully said. And you're not the only student who's ever gone through this. There's been lots of students before you, and people find their different path and their branch.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Miss Brelsford, for joining us, and a great conversation we had. We look forward to welcoming you next time to our next podcast next week on a further branch of What Do We Do After School? Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.